I think it would be safe to assume that as a 911 emergency response call handler, it's highly likely that the type of calls that are received tend to cover every possible conceivable angle. From terrifying and harrowing to bizarre and unbelievable. Simply put, who knows what kind of call is going to come through, as it by and large could be anything and everything. But when a local woman from Sheffield Lake in Ohio called 911 in July of 2017, even the ever-prepared and hard-to-shock 911 dispatch handler simply had to be stunned at what she was being told by the frantic caller.
What is the location of your emergency?
Oh, please.
Hello?
I had a boa constrictor stuck to my face.
Ma'am, you have a what?
Boa constrictor.
You have a boa constrictor stuck to you?
East Lake Road. It's a house. I'm outside with it.
You're outside with a boa constrictor stuck to your face?
Yes.
Okay.
I just rescued it yesterday, please.
You arrested the boa constrictor
I
yesterday?
rescued it.
You rescued it. Okay. Stand.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. How old are you?
I'm 45.
All right. Stay on the line, please. Ma'am, I've notified the ambulance. Is the
Please, hurry. It's on my nose.
Ma'am, I've notified the ambulance and the fire and the police department. So the boa constrictor has a hold of your nose?
Yes.
Can you pry its jaw open if you pinch
No,
its
I'm
jaw?
trying. There's blood everywhere.
Okay, and his jaw won't open?
No.
Okay, how big of a snake are we talking, ma'am?
She's like 5.5 feet.
5.5 feet? And you said you rescued it yesterday?
Yes, I rescued two.
You rescued two. Is the other one put away?
Yes.
Okay.
All of my snakes are put away.
How many snakes do you have, ma'am?
I have 11.
You have 11 snakes?
They're all ball pythons except for these two I rescued.
Okay.
Please.
Ma'am, I have an
Oh,
ambulance. Ma'am, the ambulance and the police are coming. Are you having any difficulty breathing or swallowing? Ma'am, are you having any difficulty
Yes.
breathing or swallowing?
Huh?
Are you having any difficulty breathing or swallowing?
I can't hear you.
Are you having any difficulty breathing or
Yes, I'm on
swallowing?
the ground.
Okay, are you
I'm on
having
the ground.
Okay, are you having difficulty breathing, ma'am?
No, I'm just scared.
Okay, and do you know if the snake is poisonous?
No, it's not poisonous.
It's not poisonous? Okay, and
What?
are you outside or out front?
Oh, God, hurry, please.
Ma'am, the ambulance and the police are coming. Are you outside or out front?
I'm outside up front.
You're out in the front? Okay,
Yes.
I don't want you to move, ma'am, okay?
I can't.
Okay.
Panicked woman called the emergency services and immediately launched into a desperate plea for help, stating that she had a boa constrictor stuck to her face. Unable to hide her disbelief at what she had just been told, the operator asked the caller to repeat that again, seemingly having to take a moment to process what the lady had just told her. After the struggling victim of the snake attack reaffirmed that she was out in the front yard and had a 5.5-foot boa constrictor wrapped around her body and biting her face, the call handler had to confirm one last time that she was saying she had a huge snake stuck to her face. It's not often that a call can audibly shock an emergency response call handler, but this apparently did just that. What we would ultimately learn was that the lady who was making the call was something of a snake collector and had 11 snakes in total at her property. This included 2 boa constrictors that she had rescued just a day earlier. However, snakes aren't known for their sentimentality, and it appears that one of the rescued boas had no intention of showing its rescuer any kind of gratitude. Far from it, in fact. The woman is known well around the local area for her collection of snakes, so such an episode can't have come as a complete shock to the local community. But the sequence of events that unfolded was no less dramatic or terrifying. For somebody who is evidently so comfortable and familiar with and around snakes, it's clear that the situation faced by the caller is serious, given the nature of her distressed and panicked tone. This wasn't some irrational random fear from somebody who had happened upon a snake. This was a person who loved, collected, and even rescued the divisive reptiles. So for her to be reacting in the terrified way in which she was just goes to show how critical the situation actually was. And who can blame her? Whether you love them or hate them, this was a boa constrictor that was nearly 6 feet in length, and it had coiled itself around the body and waist of the person who had rescued it less than 24 hours previously. If you aren't familiar with the hunting techniques of this type of devastating snake, then here is a little refresher. Constrictors don't poison their prey to kill them. As their name suggests, they constrict their victims in order to kill. But there are some misconceptions about how they do this. One such misconception is that the snakes crush or break the bones of their victims as they wrap themselves around them and aggressively squeeze. Another is that they effectively suffocate their victims to death, squeezing their lungs so tightly that they no longer work. Although it is of course possible, and maybe even likely in some cases, that these things inevitably happen, depending of course on the size of the snake and the size of its prey, but that isn't necessarily its aim or intention. Scientists believe that the constricting method adopted by the snakes actually effectively squeezes the life out of their bodies. The squeezing overwhelms the circulatory system and prevents blood from accessing the brain of its victim, and in turn, this is what kills them. As the fire department arrived at a grisly scene in the front yard of the woman's property, they could see the helpless lady lying on the floor in a pool of her own blood, while the boa constrictor had masterfully wrapped itself around her body and was brutally biting her nose and face. A quick-thinking firefighter didn't need to consider tactics or approach in such an unusual but serious situation. After leaping out of the fire truck, he quickly pulled out a pocket knife and rushed over to the woman. Without thought or personal regard, he quickly cut off the head of the snake and uncoiled its lifeless body from the trapped and terrified woman. They'd arrived on the scene within minutes of the call, and although it likely felt like an age for the lady being crushed by a snake, they expertly and efficiently resolved the issue immediately, saving her life in the process. The badly bitten victim was understandably shaken up and was taken to hospital by ambulance for further treatment. She was ultimately released sometime later and had fortunately suffered no life-threatening injuries. She did, however, have significant damage and lacerations to her nose, which would inevitably be a significant source of pain for her to deal with in the short term. No doubt the incident gave her plenty of food for thought about her choice of pets, and with 10 other snakes taking up residency in her property, how she felt about that setup moving forward is something that would likely need some consideration on her part. At the end of the day, she had to endure and encounter a truly horrendous situation that will likely stay with her for the rest of her life. But she is very fortunate to have a life to enjoy following a situation that could have ended up being far, far worse, but for the quick-thinking actions of a local firefighter.